Earlier today, we were stunned by the news that Tony Bennett had passed away at the age of 96. Now, I know it doesn't seem too stunning that a 96-year-old person died, but there's something about losing Tony Bennett that sort of is a shock to the system. And you'd think at that age that his wheelhouse audience was, aging boomers who remember the Rat Pack era and all of the crooning from the 60s. But you'd be wrong. Tony Bennett actually bridged multiple generations all the way into some recent recordings that he released during the wheelhouse of the millennials. But as a Gen Xer, I think Tony Bennett really belongs to us. David Marcus agrees, I think. Don't you? He's a Gen X stud, isn't he?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there was something that happened in 1995, and anyone our age is going to remember it. Tony Bennett basically became like the biggest music star in the country for us, right?
Yeah.
And it was part of a broader movement. There were sort of swing dance clubs, not swing, but swing dance clubs that were sort of opening up. And I feel like it was a post-grunge moment where like our generation, we wanted to dress up a little bit. We wanted to have a fancy cocktail instead of a 40. And here was this guy, he'd have the tuxedo and the cigarette and the bow tie undone. And, Frank Sinatra had already left the scene. Sammy Davis Jr. was already dead. This was the guy who was left to be our bridge to that. And man, we fell in love with him and had some really good times pretending to be our grandparents, I guess.
Yeah, it was this. It was like a 3-4 year window. The movie Swingers that came out, Vince Vaughn, Jon Favreau, Heather. I mean, I think it may have been their premiere for the three of them at least. It was an independent film and it exploded. Showed life in L.A. at this club I used to go to. It called the Derby, where there were
Hmm.
big bands and there were swing dancing. And you're right, Tony Bennett became this thing that we all wanted. Look at you smoking your cigarette, just like Tony Bennett in the lounge. I mean, this is the sort of coolness that transcended all these other eras, and we don't have stars like that anymore. It's sad.
No, no. But let's not forget. I mean, we were also sticking our thumb in the eyes of our parents a little bit, right? Who had given up the big band era for Led Zeppelin and folk music, and I can't tell you how much Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young I had to go through in my childhood years, and it was great. We made this return to such beautiful standard American music. And I wish we could have something like that again because it really was a wonderful moment. Maybe Harry Connick Jr. can make a big comeback or something. I don't know, but I think it would be nice to see.
Yeah, Harry Connick Jr., Michael Bublé also, he sort of fills that wheelhouse right now. But and they're great and they're fantastic performers. They do it, but they're doing a Tony Bennett shtick. They're doing a Dean Martin shtick. I mean, it's there's something about Tony Bennett's passing now that it's like, okay, he's the last one.
Yeah. Well, I think he is the last one. There's people who remember him, but you talk to guys like Joe Piscopo who were sort of in that world and they have all the stories and stuff. But even Joe's a generation younger. So yeah, I mean it was a fantastic generation that we've lost, and it's important to remember them.
There's something more. Obviously, everybody talks about his voice and how smooth it was, his range, his delivery, his interpretation. But beyond just his musicality, David Marcus, it was all presented. There was this sense of style and class and just sort of effortlessness that you don't see in performers anymore. It's almost like if a performer isn't sweating his face off on stage, he's not working hard enough for you. And actually, ultimately, I mean, we've been around performers in our careers. It's actually quite the opposite. It's the ones who make it look easy, the ones who actually aren't breaking a sweat, they're the ones working the hardest.
Yeah, and Bennett might have been the best of all of them at that. I mean, as fantastic as Sinatra and Dino and Sammy were, you did feel with the Rat Pack, like, hey, there's a and with Bennett, it was just
They'd
like,
untie the bow tie and they'd have
yeah,
to get
yeah,
another
no, but
drink. And
with
yeah,
Bennett,
exactly.
it was just, all right, sit down, I'm gonna sing a song, kids. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that you don't, we've talked before about things that you don't teach, whether it's writing or acting or singing. Or, I mean, Tony Bennett had so many of those things. There's never going to be another one. We were lucky that we got to enjoy them.
Yep. For 96 years. Well, at least I guess maybe 76 years in terms of his professional life. One other thing about Tony Bennett, class and kindness. it permeated his performances, his interviews, the way he dealt with people. Everybody wanted to work with him. And that also can't be underestimated. David Marcus, great insights. Thanks for joining us on this for an important remembrance of one of the best. That's it for tonight. We'll be back on Monday, same time, same place. In the meantime, I'll see you on the radio.